The main reason Muslims have never been able to understand the incarnation, God taking on a human nature, isn't that it's somehow impossible. Muslims believe that God is powerful enough to do whatever he wants. So if God wanted to enter creation, he obviously could.
And Christians believe that Yahweh is powerful enough to do whatever he wants. So if Yahweh wanted to forgive without a blood sacrifice, he obviously could.
The real reason they can't get their minds around the incarnation is that they don't believe in a God who loves people enough to do something like that.
The reason why Christians can't get their mind around forgiveness without bloodshed is because Christians don't believe in a God who loves people enough to do something like that.
The Quran is filled with verses about Allah not loving people.
The Bible is filled with verses of Yahweh and Jesus not loving people. It is not sins that are punished on the day of judgment, but sinners.
Allah does not love those who exceed the limits. Allah does not love any ungrateful sinner. Allah does not love the unbelievers. Allah does not love the unjust. Allah does not love him who is proud or boastful. Allah does not love the extravagant. Allah does not love the treacherous. Allah does not love the mischief makers. Allah does not love any arrogant boaster.
Okay, so David Wood just gave a list of verses, I think about 10 or so from the Quran, saying all the people that Allah does not love. Well, Jesus does not love as well. I'm going to be reading out of the Word. Jesus does not love those who sin sexually, 1 Corinthians 6, 9 to 11. Jesus does not love those who gossip, 1 Corinthians 6, verse 10. Jesus does not love those who worship other gods, Exodus 34, 14. Jesus hates those who are ungodly and those who are unrighteous, Romans 1, 18. Jesus does not love those who do not repent, Luke 13, verse 3. Jesus does not love those who don't take refuge in him, Psalm 2, verse 12. Jesus does not love those who fornicate, Ephesians 5, 5 to 6. Jesus does not love those who are hard-hearted, Romans 2, verse 5. Jesus does not love those who do not believe in him and obey, John 3, 35. Jesus does not love those who deny and reject him before men, Matthew 10, 33. You see what I can do there, David Wood? Now, whatever answer a Christian would say in response to that, Muslims listen to that answer and just parrot what they say. Just repeat back what they say.
According to the Quran, Allah will only love you if you first love him.
Now, this is where I think David Wood's critical thinking skills are lacking, because if he's going to make that type of claim, he should sit for a second and say to himself, well, wait a minute, could this come back and bite me? Could this come back and bite me? Is there any verses in Christianity that sound similar to this? And if he can think like that, I don't think he would have said what he's just going to say, because guys like me can pick up on it. Let me...
According to the Quran, Allah will only love you if you first love him.
Okay, according to John chapter 14, verse 21, Jesus will only love you if you first love him. And I quote, "Whoever has my commands and keeps them is the one who loves me." There's many verses that say that if you keep his commands, if you obey God, then he will love you. "The one who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them." What's this verse saying? It's saying, if you obey me first, if you love me first, then you'll be loved by my Father, and I too will love them and show myself to them. Exactly the criticism he's giving about Allah and Islam can be thrown right back to him on Christianity.
Jesus condemns this sort of love. He says in Matthew 5, "You have heard that it was said, 'Love your neighbor and hate your enemy.' But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? If you love unbelievers or the unjust or your enemies, you're more loving than Allah."
Here's another perfect example. If you love your enemies, you are more loving than Allah. Can you think, David Wood, of how that could come back and bite you? Here's an example. Christians, if you can forgive me without being violent toward me, without requiring a blood sacrifice from me, if you can forgive me without that, you are more loving than Jesus. You are more loving than Yahweh. You see how this works? It's very, very simple. If you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and view your beliefs from a third-party perspective, it becomes very, very simple.
Think about that. What sense does it make for a human being to be greater than God in some important way?
Yes, David Wood, think about that. What sense does it make for a human being to be greater than Yahweh in some important way, like forgiveness?
And yet the world is filled with people who are more loving than Allah.
And yet the world is filled with people who are more loving than Yahweh and Jesus, who can forgive without violence, who can forgive without a blood sacrifice.
I love people more than Allah does, and I'm a psychopath. I love people more than Allah does, and I'm a psychopath.
He's proud of being a psychopath, by the way. And my guess is you love people more than Yahweh or Jesus, even though you're a psychopath. There's a lot of Christians who struggle mightily with the verses I just read because their idea of Jesus is one of love. And yet, if you don't love him first, just like you said with the Muslims, David Wood, Allah will only love you if you love him first. That's what you said about the Muslims. I can say the exact same thing back to you. If you don't love Jesus, if you don't obey Jesus, if you don't take up your cross and follow Jesus, you will be like the withered branch and burned in fire, said Jesus. You got to love Jesus first before he'll love you back. Muslims, feel free to use this at your leisure.